Cardinal stuff, they never cease to amaze me, the stuff that they say. And in USA Today, there was a story by, I always stumble on this dude's last name, and he's been on our show, Gabe Locks, I think it is.
Yes, Locks.
Yeah. All right, that's what I thought, just to make sure. Mm-hmm. He did a story on the Cardinals, because the Cardinals are a story. The fact that right now through 75 games they have, their worst record since 1990 through 75 games. And, and then before that, you'd have to go all the way back to 1913. So, yeah, that's a story. So he talked to Mo, and he said, Mo said, I do feel like there's still a lot of talent on this club. The injuries in the outfield certainly play a part. The inconsistency in the rotation certainly plays a part in this. The inconsistency in our bullpen has played a part in this. First of all, let me stop right there. We're still talking about injuries in the outfield, are we? Boy, that's their binky. That's the one that they always grab for comfort. At least he did acknowledge, unlike that interview he gave to Tom on Sports on a Sunday Morning a couple months ago, where he pushed back on the idea that the rotation was costing them success. He just flat out said, well, I don't see it there. The rotation is not the reason we're not winning. Well, what the hell is? But at least this time he acknowledged it's been a problem. I guess that's progress. And then he said, quote, the reality is there are a lot of reasons why we are where we are. There's also a lot of reasons why we can get better. The real good news is we still have 2/3 of the season remaining. There is time to start getting this right. Now, look, I may be accused of being kind of like a petty guy when I say this. The guy that is running the baseball operation doesn't even know basically what time of the season it is. They don't have 2/3 of the season remaining. I calculated it today. They're almost at the halfway mark. They have 75 games, 6 more. They're officially at the halfway mark. They got little more than 46% of the schedule remaining. So he doesn't even know what time it is. And listen, I say things on live radio where it's like, oh man, wait a minute, let me revise it. Let me correct that. I was wrong about that. And so I do cut him some slack, but it just struck me because I was like, well, what do you mean 2/3 of the season remaining? You don't have that much time, man. You got 46%, and you're still 13 games out. And then he said, Mo said, quote, eventually at some point, we got to figure out who we are. I can tell you who you are. You're 31-44. You got the 24th ranked rotation. You have arguably one of the bottom 3 bullpens in Major League Baseball. You have an offense that can't score and a lot of runs or win unless they're hitting 3 home runs a game, and that's a fact. You got a defense that's gone from second in 2021, 4th in 2022. It's 28th as of today in the defensive run save rankings right now. And you're last, at least in the National League, in terms of advancing the extra base when you're a runner and somebody puts the ball in play. That's who you are. That's who you are. What do you mean? Well, we got to figure out who we are. You've had 75 games, man. What are you talking about? And all of the flaws on the team. Listen, a big goofball like me can sit down and spend about half an hour and tell you exactly who you are because the numbers are overwhelming in terms of exactly identifying where your problems are and the problems that make you 31-44 when you're nearly halfway through the season. See, the reason I bring this up, it's just that it's another example of seemingly how much they're in the bubble, and just like they're sort of out of touch with reality. And they have a hard time owning up to the kind of awful season they're having. And we talk about this team all the time, like yesterday, which was a just ridiculous performance by the offense. They couldn't wait to get to the bus, get to the airport and fly to the UK. The starting pitcher, Trevor Williams, yesterday, 6 innings, no runs. He only needed 12.5 pitches per inning to just whisk these guys out of the batter's box because the at-bats were so uncompetitive, so lazy. They didn't grind out anything. It was like, let's get out of here. They're 12 games out at that point, and, you got a chance to sweep a team, believe it or not, one of the few teams that's worse than you are. And you can't do it because you're giving away at-bats to a bad team. I was just really disgusted by that because you have a chance to sweep. You got to sweep. You got to stack up victories any way you can get them. You can't take one game for granted. And so then the president of baseball operation comes out, and those of us who say they're too complacent, they're too arrogant, they're a little out of touch. It's like they exist in their own bubble. All of these quotes prove that point again. He doesn't even know where they are in the schedule. He's talking about, well, we got to find out who we are, as if you don't already know who you are. And by the way, you put the damn team together. And it's like, you just throw up your hands and just say, I give up. I give up.
Yesterday was awful. You're right about that. I have a good text, by the way, I have to share with you.
Cool.
Because you'll laugh. You'll like this. It's regarding Cardinals are in London, he says, and the British care about words. Could Bernie start working the word center cut into the show more? Thank you.
I will. Yeah, because we all don't hear that enough, right?
Right.
That's good.
I had to let that one out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope I hear that this weekend too. Somebody throws one up, kind of up and in. It buzz in the tower.
Overcooked, buzz the tower, and center cut.
Overcooked. I don't know when that became a thing. That vernacular exists in a lot of sports. I actually heard it on an MLS broadcast last weekend.
Oh, really?
So whoever it was, it's like, oh, he overcooked that pass.
Texter just threw this one up on the screen here. The Cardinals are rubbish.
Well, they are from the standpoint, when you're 26th in baseball winning percentage and 13th in the National League. That would be rubbish, or it would be the discard pile where you're like, no, they're not. Yeah, that's just below our standards. No, that's not. They're not a keeper. Yeah, you just move that to the side. Yeah. Our friend Dave Kaplan joins us. Always a pleasure to talk to our friend Cap, host of Cap plus J Hood on ESPN Chicago. Cap, first of all, buddy, thank you for doing this. But before we talk Cubs, how was the Springsteen show in Paris?
It's freaking sensational. It was my 26th show, and that is the best I've ever seen other than the one-man show on Broadway that I saw. My wife took me in 18 for my birthday. That was incredible, but leave that one-man show that's so different to the side. This was the best show I ever saw.
I was so happy that you, out of the blue, called me just to tell me you and your wife were about to do this, and it made me really, really happy. So I knew it would be great, and I'm glad it was great. So, unfortunately, I know. It's and that. What was the crowd like?
33,000, and it was insane. I looked. There's Drew Carey over there. Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable. My wife's not a big Bruce fan. I'm an addict. Like, I could see him another 800 times. And I know you're a diehard. And so when my neighbor came to me, he runs Steven Van Zant's charity from the E Street Band. He said, hey, if you're looking to buy tickets for the tour, the money goes to his charity. I said, done. And I looked, I'm like, oh, my God, Paris, I'll go there. So we bought the 2 tickets. I literally was using miles. I said to my wife, we'll fly on Thursday, dinner Friday, concert Saturday, fly home. She's like, absolutely not. You get 5 weeks of vacation. Take a week. So we took a week, went to Amsterdam, Brussels, and Paris. It was incredible.
You know what I have to say, Cap? Mrs. Cap sounds a lot like Mrs. Bernie.
There you go.
As we like to say, I think we both outkicked our coverage.
No question. Way outkicked our coverage.
All right, listen. I'm really looking forward to this London series because the Cardinals are one of the huge stories in baseball because of their futility, and even if they take a couple steps forward, they immediately fall back. I mean, I don't have to tell you that the Cubs are playing great ball. After David Ross got on, had some firm words for the players in the West Coast trip that wasn't going well. He expected more from them, especially the hitters. They have been on a roll since then, which leads me to ask you, are you surprised that they are playing so well, and what does it mean in terms of the trade deadline?
They're going to have to buy. That's what it really means. I'm not surprised they're playing, good baseball. I said that at the start of the year, in my opinion, I picked them to be 82-80. And when they got off to the 11-6 start and they're rolling along, thought, okay, maybe they'll come in 83-84. And then you go on this horrific month of May, and the team is looking terrible, and they're 12 games under, and now they're playing better baseball. And a lot of people believe that Jed Heuer was going to sell again at the deadline. One more time, guys, let's get some more prospects in here. Can't do it. Cannot do it. You're 3.5 games out of first. You've got a veteran clubhouse that has two glaring needs. One, a third baseman. Got to get a third baseman unless Nolan Arenado is coming to the Cubs, and it's not going to happen. They got to go get somebody, whether that's Matt Chapman, who's going to be a free agent if Toronto decides they're going to sell. I don't think they will, but they might. Justin Turner, but he has a player option for next year. He's with Boston. He's 39. He's having an excellent year, but he's got a player option at $14 million. I don't think the Cubs will have an appetite for that. And to get Boston to eat a lot of that money, you'd have to give up an elite prospect. I don't think Jed has that appetite. So the guy that I think they're targeting is Jeimer Candelario, who ironically was a Cub. They drafted and developed or signed and developed him and traded him when they had their window open to the Tigers for Alex Avila, the catcher, and Justin Wilson, the left-handed reliever. And so that might be the kind of guy. 1-year deal, $5 million with Washington, who's not going anywhere, might be able to get him. He's a very good defender. And then they got to get some bullpen help. And I'm looking across the city of Chicago going, the White Sox stink. So how about Joe Kelly and take on a flyer on the lefty like Aaron Bummer, because we basically don't have a lefty. So they've got to make those moves.
Dave Kaplan, our good friend from Chicago, long time broadcaster, TV dude, and of course has been a sports radio fixture for a long time as well. And so anyway, see, I was running out of things to say about you because you do so many things. Does a lot of college basketball in the off season as well, including Missouri Valley Conference basketball, Atlantic 10 Conference basketball. So he gets into St. Louis to do the Billikens every now and then. Anyway, back to business. Aren't they at least listen, reading The Athletic and a couple other outlets, it seems obvious like Marcus Stroman would love to stay in Chicago, but it's obviously going to be expensive. He can opt out. But at least going by the coverage, it seems like the Cubs, at least up until now, have not really shown any inclination to try to hammer out a deal. Wouldn't they be at least tempted to move him if there is a tantalizing offer? How do you think this is going to play out? Will they do it? Will they try to keep him after the season? Is the door going to be open to that realistically? Just fill us in on that.
Okay, so here's my thought on this. Today Tom Ricketts is at a pub in London with Pat Hughes and Ron Coomer and a few other people, and the crowd in there, all this pro-Cub crowd at some bar is calling itself the Cub Pub in London, and people start chanting Marcus Stroman, and then somebody yells, "Hey, sign Marcus Stroman!" And Tom's response was, "Talk to Jed." Okay, my response is, you own the freaking team. I'm not saying that he has to stand up there and go, we're going to get it done and we're going to give him whatever he wants. All you have to say is you got to know how to play this. Hey, folks, we love Marcus, and Jed, I'm sure, is going to talk to his reps. That's his end of things. But we love Marcus, and we hope he's a Cub for a very, very long time. Unless they fall out of the race, I don't see any scenario where they trade him simply because they think their window is starting to open, especially next year. And so if that's the case, you can't give up a guy who's pitching as well as he is. Now, if they are to hit a skid and they look up and go, oh, God, we're back to 9 under, I think all bets are off then because he's going to be 33. How many years does he want? Is he willing to waive his or take his opt-out and then give him a new 3-year deal at, what, $90 million? Okay, I think they would do that. But if he says, I want 5 at, $40 a year, they're not doing that. They will move him 100%.
Cap, the Cubs rotation looks pretty damn good. Do you think that's accurate? I mean, I don't sit here and watch every Cubs game, but they look good. They really do.
They're legit. Stroman's legit, and that's why I don't think you have to sign Marcus Stroman now. All these fans are saying to me, why would you not just sign him now? Because you don't have to. What if you wake up, you've given him 4 years at, let's call it 140, 4 years at $140 million, and everybody's all excited. Hey, the Cubbies did this. And then you wake up in August and he's either not pitching as well, probably not going to happen, or God forbid he got hurt. And you're like, why did we jump the gun here? Go to him the first week, second week of September if you want, or as soon as the season ends and go, hey, you opt out and we'll tack, a 3-year deal on. If he wants 5 years, then you're going to give him a qualifying offer and let him leave. I don't see any way they're giving him 5 years, but I don't know if anyone in the industry will give him 5 years. So that is, a huge question of how many years and how many dollars he wants. The rest of the rotation, you're going to see Justin Steele. He just came off the injured list and pitched through 75 pitches last Saturday and was really good and beat the Orioles, who is a quality club.
Sure.
And you're going to like him. And then you're going to see Stroman on Sunday. Kyle Hendricks is back looking amazing. Drew Smiley's having a really good year. So I like where our starting rotation is. We need bullpen help.
You got a better starting rotation than the Cardinals do. Cardinals need a little bit of everything. Are you, Cap, you and I have had conversations about the Cubs and the Cardinals for years. And I always, I always ask you to give us the Chicago view. Your view, but it's still a prevailing Chicago view. How surprised are you that the Cardinals are this bad? And my friend, they're bad in they're bad in every area. I mean, base running, defense. They only can win confident about winning when they hit 3 home runs in a game. They don't manufacture runs. I mean, on and on and on. Are you surprised that this thing?
I'm surprised.
Yeah,
I am. I watch a ton of baseball. I got 5 TVs in my basement because this is what we do for a living. And there's the Cardinal game and the Cub game and the White Sox game. I'm surprised when you have Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, Wilson Contreras, and DeYoung. You've got players there, and I know your pitching's not great, but there's more talent than what we're seeing. And some of the mistakes I've watched, some of the base running and some of the defense, I cannot believe that is the Cardinal way. Does that cost Oliver Marmol his job? Maybe, but there's more talent there than they're showing. That is disgraceful the way they're playing.
And you and I have talked quite a bit about Wilson Contreras. You're very close with him, and you know him better than any Chicago media person. And you had great insight on him. I felt like I knew him even before he got here. He got off to a terrible start, and I think the pressure got to him, and the Cardinals screwed him. They really did. That was ridiculous the way they treated this man. And they've tried to make up for it because they immediately almost recanted and then put him behind the plate again. But to launch his career here with that kind of embarrassment that the team put on him, no wonder I think his head's been kind of spinning. He's starting to hit, though. But what do you make of the way the Cardinals actually just did him wrong in his early career in St. Louis?
like you and I aren't in that clubhouse, so I don't know if he did something that really bothered them. I don't know the answer to that. I know I talked with him, and he said it's just gotten sideways. I got to get this thing right because we've got a good team here. Like, he said all the right things, and so we'll see. He's a wonderfully talented, wildly passionate guy, and sometimes that ruffles feathers with some people who aren't used to seeing a guy who might break an iPad or two because he's upset with something that happened on the field. So I love the guy. I've told you that. But he also has to understand you're fitting into a new environment. There was a reason the Cubs didn't want him back. Whatever that reason was, they never made an offer. And a lot of us here thought that was a mistake. You have to make sure you fit in to what the St. Louis Cardinals want. And I hope he does because I love the guy.
Yeah, and the Cubs wanted more of a defense-first catcher. I've read a lot about that. And, they want guys who can, are superb at running a pitching staff. And just, whatever offense they get, fine. The Cardinals were the other way. They wanted to upgrade a terrible position offensively, and it made sense to go after him. But the thing that I still cannot get my head around is that Wilson Contreras came to the Cardinals. He's worked his ass off. He's tried to, do everything he can to impress his teammates and the staff. But their reaction was like, well, wait a minute. He's not Yadier Molina. I mean, it's just it just defies it just breaks my mind that they didn't seem to know what they were getting. Hey, no one is Yadier Molina. Get over it. Move on. You can't hold him to that standard.
Correct. You cannot. You cannot hold him to that standard.
And he's doing fine defensively, I think. Anyway, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, look, Yadier Molina is going to the Hall of Fame. That is huge shoes to have to fill. Huge. Wilson's a good player. He's not going to the Hall of Fame. That's just a fact. So to expect him to come in and be Yachty is unrealistic.
Cap, you're the best, absolutely the best, and I'm sure we'll be in touch again soon. But thanks for helping me out as you always do. Much obliged, sir.
I look forward to him. I'm sitting on my boat right now.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I'm up in Wisconsin, so anytime I can help my friend Bernie, I'm in.
Last time I talked to you, you're on your way to Paris. Now it's like, well, I'm on my boat up in Wisconsin. I'm in my home office. That's where I live now. My home office. You are the best, though. Thank you.
You too. Have a great day.
I want to talk about Nolan Gorman because, again, I do think that the longer this goes, the more concerning it becomes. And I always feel like I have to sort of do these disclaimers or whatever you want to call it. I love Nolan Gorman, the ball player, and what his talent can do for the Cardinals, and we saw that just right in front of our eyes with this incredible start he had to the season after an offseason of hard work. So I'm not down on Nolan Gorman. I want Nolan Gorman to be everything that he can be because he can absolutely make a humongous aspect on the Cardinals offense. So I'm just going to add some information because, I can keep telling you, and I will. I'll update it. In his last 15 games. First of all, yesterday, they lose 3-0, and they have second and third, one out. I think it was the bottom of the seventh. Second and third, one out. And at that time, it was a 2-0 game. So if Gorman gets a base hit, depending on where the hit actually travels to, but if he gets a base hit, double, whatever, it's a tie game. And he struck out looking, which was, disappointing. And then Dylan Carlson rolled out harmlessly to shortstop. So threat over, game over pretty much at that point because they were not taking competitive at-bats at all. It's embarrassing. So anyway, in his last 15 games, he's 4 for 52. That's an 0.77 average. His slugging percentage is 135. You want a slugging percentage to be up over about 450 or higher, and he's at 135. And his strikeout rate the last 15 games is 46.5%. That's not good. I don't think you needed me to tell you that. That's not good. In June, the whole month so far, he's 7 for 60. He's hitting 117. His strikeout rate is just under 45%. He's got the second highest strikeout rate in the majors this month. Philadelphia's Brandon Marsh is slightly worse. I mean, like a couple of percentage points. Like he's at 45% and Gorman is like 44.7%. So he's got the second highest strikeout rate, Gorman does, in the majors this month. And remember all the slugging that he provided. It was monstrous, and it was just so much fun to watch. He was just hitting rockets way deep. This month, with major league hitters, among those who have at least 50 plate appearances in June, it's 221 guys. He ranks number 213 out of 221 with a 217 slugging percentage. This, my friends, is not a slump. A slump is when you go 1 for 21, 22, strikeouts are up. Manager says, "Hey, let's regroup a little. You know, you're going to be fine. Just be good. Clear your head. We'll give you a day off. We'll get this thing going." They've tried that. I mean, they've moved him down in the lineup, and this thing, frankly, just keeps getting worse. And I don't know when to declare it, lack of a better term, an emergency. I really don't, because I do think you got to play your way through it, and they're sure as heck not going to send him down. But the more this goes on, the more problematic it becomes, because and the irony is he's playing well at second base. He truly is. But it's just this is reminiscent of what happened to him late in the season last year. It just became overwhelming. His body language, those of you watching TV or down at the ballpark, you can see it. I mean, he is really, really frustrated. That doesn't help matters. The way he reacts to his latest strikeout or a missed opportunity, whatever you have it. I mean, he's taking this hard. He's really being hard on himself. But that doesn't do anything for you mentally. I understand why you are when you get frustrated, because we all get frustrated. But it doesn't exactly help him. So, but let's talk about the actual baseball stuff, pitcher versus hitter stuff. So what's the problem? I spent a lot of time going on StatCast today. I didn't want to go nuts and give you 6 million stats, so I'm not. He's struggling against fastballs, high fastballs in particular. But in the month of May, he had a whiff rate. That's when you swing with the obvious attempt to put the ball in play and you miss. He had a 26% whiff rate on fastballs in May, and that's up to nearly 36% in June. That's a lot more swing and miss on 2-strike fastballs. In May, the pitcher would put him away for a strikeout 23% of the time when he got 2 strikes. This month, the so-called put-away rate has jumped to 37%. So they're just overpowering him with fastballs, especially up in the zone, which was the number one problem last year, the thing he worked on all offseason. Now, they're throwing. The thing that's interesting, though, they're really being mean. Kidding, they're being mean to him because they've actually been throwing him fewer fastballs this month, even though he hasn't been able to do much with them at all. But they're like, well, he's going to be able to get back in sync and start hitting fastballs. If they have any kind of half decent hitting coach, that already would be starting. But they have increased their volume of breaking pitches this month, especially on 2-strike counts. In June, he's got a 43% whiff rate on breaking pitches and has a put-away rate. In other words, strikeout percentage, 2 strikes, or the times that he's sitting there vulnerable. They've put him away 37% of the time on 2-strike breaking balls. In May, that percentage was 18.5%. Now, in the next month, it's double that. Oh. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but what this means is they're just like messing with him and tying him up with, okay, all right, he's having a hard time with the fastball. Let's pound the fastball, but just to really mess with him, then we're going to feed him more breaking balls, and he'll be really overwhelmed. And that's exactly what's happening. Seriously, it really is. So when we talk about, well, it's a slump, I mean, I think it's a little more than a slump. You're seeing kind of a collapse at the plate. To use a name from the past, one of the great hitting coaches of all time, I like to use these old school things that will please a certain percentage of our audience. I'm not Charlie Lau, okay? But when a dude can't hit a fastball and now they're just spinning his head around with breaking balls. You can't hit a fastball. You can't hit a breaking ball. Where do you go from that, right?
Yeah, that's a big problem.
And here we go again. And I know that it's easy and it's a bit of a cop-out to blame coaches, but pardon my sarcasm and my intentional exaggeration, but as I always like to say, you know, when you look in the Cardinals dugout during games, and there's about 25 coaches in there. I'm exaggerating, of course. That's one of the more crowded dugouts I've ever seen. What are all these people doing? To have such a bad base running club, bad defensive club, hitters get in a slump and like no one can do anything to maybe help them along, at least successfully do anything. You know, they gave up on Jordan Walker earlier in the season. You know, remember they took him out of the lineup in Seattle and San Francisco, and then before they sent him down, 2 or 3 days working in the cage, not playing. And they were going to get him gone, you know, and then they gave up and they sent him to Memphis. Right. I mean, what is the point of having, I think they really do have 3 hitting coaches. What is the point exactly? And yes, this is up to Gorman. Yes, he showed that he could correct his flaws and adapt last offseason coming into this season, and he really did a wonderful job, but now he's relapsed. And so what? You just write him in the lineup and, oh, he'll figure it out. What? Oh, man.
It's frustrating. And the one thing I'll add with the Gorman situation is, okay, all the information he was given, he went in the offseason and he fixed it, or he researched it. My question now is, did he do that on his own? Did he hire his own guy? How did that work? Or did the Cardinals really work? You know what I mean? Because now it's like, wait a minute. To your point, Bernie, we kind of seeing the same movie over here with the information.
Right.
Does Gorman got to go find his own guy to fix him, or can anybody in this organization help? To your point, it's like, come on, what's going on here?
I mean, just to help him, not, you know, he's the one in the batter's box, and if you reinforce whatever message you're saying, hey, here's what you got to do. All right, here's what they're doing to you, and here's what you got to do to them, and you're gonna have to change some things. Here it is, A, B, C, whatever it is, you know.
Yep.
He should be able to make those corrections. You know why I say that? Because he made them over the offseason. In the first 2 months of the season, roughly, he started to tail off later in May, but in the first 6 weeks of the season or so, the guy was people were talking about him like, oh, he's going to be in the All-Star team. Hey, he'll get some MVP votes. And I'm not making fun of people who said that, because the guy was that monstrous and that great in terms of hitting for power. And we were bragging about him, all of us, about, man, his strikeout rate is way down. He's not chasing pitches. His swing and miss rate is way down. I mean, we were praising him, and deservedly so. So we know that he can make corrections, but now he's in a spot where it seems like he's lost all over again. Well, who can help him get out of the wilderness? You know, because we're told that, oh, the coaches are great. They work hard. They work hard. Oh, they help. Oh, my goodness, we're so blessed to have these coaches. You've got one of the potentially most dangerous, lethal young sluggers in the game when he's right. And you got 3 different hitting coaches down there. And is there anything that would justify him getting so out of whack for such a long period of time? Again, I know baseball. I know slumps are inevitable. The best hitters ever got into slumps. Sometimes it's a couple weeks, sometimes maybe if it's really extreme, like 3 weeks or something. But they always figure a way back figure how to find their way back once they get lost. I don't know how much help he's getting from the people that are paid to coach. See, because everybody, and listen, I'm saying this sincerely, I'm not doing my usual lampooning the whole thing about, Jeff Albert was to blame for everything. Okay. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, when Jeff Albert moved on, I think a lot of people, because he was a target of criticism, fairly or unfairly, I think a lot of people thought, okay, well, now they're going to be able to get these guys gone. No, actually they haven't.
It is disappointing, and at some point, you think this organization will go, let's revisit what you learned or what you took in the off season, even if it's not something they are preaching. You got to give all the options to help them fix it. And to your point, it's more than a slump now. This is an issue, and when you watch him up there at the plate,
feel bad for him.
Yeah, because you can see the frustration. He is missing the pitches he is getting to hit. He's not even making good contact with that right now. And then it's almost like he just flings the bat out there and boom, strikeout, you're out, go sit down.
He's so lost right now, and
yes.
It's really a shame. And I know that I repeat myself, and I'm sorry, but if you can't help this kid find his way out and get back to level ground at least, what are you paying 3 hitting coaches for? What? Are they working with Goldie? Now Goldie, let me show you something. I learned this a long time ago, son. Goldie doesn't need help. Arenado doesn't need help. There's a lot of those guys that don't need help, and I'm not saying they're perfect hitters, but they know how to self-correct. I think Brendan Donovan's one of those guys. He has been hitting great. It took him a little while because, he wanted to become, more powerful and all that, and he was out of whack there for a while. But, he's up to 7 home runs. He only hit 4 last year, and more importantly than anything, he's back to getting on base a lot, and he's hitting for average again. He's self-corrected. He's a smart dude. He figured it out. But batting coaches aren't there to stand around a cage telling Paul Goldschmidt, well, let me present something to you, Goldie. That's not why they're paid. It's to rescue a dude like Jordan Walker in late April, and they even took him into the cage and didn't play him, even though he's on the roster, for about 2 or 3 days, and it's just like, oh, well, I don't know. Better get him down to Memphis. Just gave up on him.
Yeah.
And then now you have Gorman, and this has been going on for weeks and weeks. Ever since that big night that he had against the Brewers that I allude to.
That's
when they
right.
were coming, when they beat the Cubs on the road, the Red Sox on the road, they came home. They beat the Brewers 18-1. Gorman had 2 home runs and 5 RBIs in that game. They won the series, then they beat the Dodgers. It was right around then he started to just go downhill. It was a little slowly at first, but it's really accelerated in terms of his, tumbling down the hill. And it's just, I don't know. I know I'm sounding like I'm blaming the coaches. And I think it's easy to blame hitting coaches. That's why I defended you-know-who so much last year, because I thought it was unfair. But whoever the hitting coach is, right, if a guy's lost in space and it's like, well, you got to find a way to reel him back in. You just have to, and you got to help him at least. You got to help him. I don't know. Is it all him, or is it the fact that he's maybe not getting the help that he really needs, or at least it's not effective help that he really needs? Or is it all on him? I mean, I got an open mind about this.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to say, hey, kid, you got to work on this if that's the case. But he's shown the ability throughout his minor league career to get to a place, take in the information, adjust to it, and then succeed. And he did that here in the offseason, here in the early part of the season. This thing is going south so fast. It's like, okay, he's shown the ability to adjust in the past. Why can't he do it here? And is he not getting the right information? Because from what I can see in his past history, when he's given a group of data in front of him, he's been able to do that. Where's this at right now? Is the data even given wrong? Is it not there? It just makes me question that side of what's being presented to him, because he's been able to show he's doing it in the past. That's kind of where I'm at with it. And the other thing, and I mentioned this yesterday when we were at Friendlies, one thing I do say on him is he hasn't shown the ability to fight off a pitch here or there to get another pitch. And I just don't know if he'll ever be able to do that, because he's a power hitter. A lot of times power hitters just can't be that guy. Maybe he can't, but if he could develop a little bit of that, it would help him out as well.
I think that's such a great observation. I think you're 100% right. You just got to, like you said, man, you got to just fight those pitches off a little better, a lot better, actually. I wanted to look up something here really quick, and I'm just about there, so thank you all for your patience. Let's see.
While you're doing that, I'll read a text
go ahead,
so we
man.
can
I'm
get
sorry.
to it. And this is more on the lines of all the coaches that we, as a group, and he mentions Willie McGee. He says, no disrespect to Willie McGee, but what's the point of having him around if he can't develop any of our outfielders? And that's a different subject, but yeah.
Listen, Tyler O'Neill won 2 Gold Gloves, and I'm sure Willie McGee helped him. Dylan Carlson the Cardinals believe he's a really good outfielder. I think he's a solid outfielder. But he's worked with Dylan Carlson, and if the Cardinals and a lot of the fans believe that he's, been a plus outfielder, he certainly has received some tutelage from Willie McGee. Lars Nootbaar works with Willie McGee. Lars Nootbaar is actually a good defensive outfielder, and he's going to get even better through continuity. So, you know what I'm saying? With all due respect, I'm not sure. I don't think this is. I don't think this is on Willie. I really don't. And it has nothing to do with, we got outfielders playing, infielders playing outfield. That's one of my things I pound all the time. So I don't know. I do think it's kind of a shared responsibility,
Yeah, Willie worked with Bader, and Bader won a Gold Glove. He's been around long enough to work with a lot of different players. I can't put all the blame on Jordan Walker, any of the blame on Jordan Walker not being an outfielder on Willie McGee.
Right.
He's only been here 2 months, if that, with Willie, and then prior to that, he was only an outfielder for 2 months during his entire minor league career. So from that standpoint, that's not a Willie McGee thing, and I can't put the lack of offensive production on Willie McGee. We're talking about defense here.
Right.
So
I definitely do not blame Willie McGee for Jordan Walker. Uncle Bernie here has told you all this story many times. One more time. They knew they were going to have to move him to the outfield. He's a third baseman in terms of growing up in high school and all that stuff. And even his first year in the minors or so. Third baseman. Well, they have a guy named Arenado who can take care of that. And they were very confident that he was not going to opt out because he gave them that indication all along. And as we knew, there was never even a chance that he was going to opt out. And he didn't. And Jordan Walker, who had never played the outfield at any level, they gave him a glove and said, well, you're an outfielder now. And it was August the 2nd last summer. And So he has about a month, maybe slightly less than a month. I think he started 30 games in the outfield late last summer. And they go into the 2023 season putting him in the outfield, and he's just not developed. And I'm sure Willie McGee is doing everything he can to help him. And I would even say I'm sure he's helped him at least to some extent, because Willie McGee's a very dedicated guy, and he knows what he's doing. I never question whether he's kind of a – listen, man, I've been around baseball a long time. There are coaches that I've known as far as the way they're perceived within the baseball family, where you're like, you know what, that guy talks a good game. He's kind of a con man. You know, always got all the answers. He's selling you this. He's telling you that. He's taking credit for stuff. That ain't Willie McGee. He's about as sincere person as you'll ever meet. So, yeah, I don't know. The Cardinals organization failed Jordan Walker. And Jordan Walker will be, I can't put a timetable on it because he has a lot of pride, and he's very, very, very mature and very, very, very smart. And he's got tremendous character. He'll be a good outfielder. He'll be at least an average outfielder, maybe even by the end of the season. Certainly next year he'll be average at worst, because he'll make himself better. But I think Willie McGee's there to help him. The boys and girls over at STL today on Cards Talk were getting all excited. Skip Schumacher, Marlins manager, was on Dan Le Batard's podcast. And he was talking about being, what a great situation he's in, and he just enjoys working with everybody. And he said, quote, Skip, quote, I've been on staffs before where it was a little bit toxic and guys were going after each other's jobs. Now, right away, it's like, oh, see that card, man, and see, nobody wants to work for the Cardinals. And see, well, I've been telling you it's a toxic clubhouse. Listen. First of all, he left because he had a chance to be a manager, which was his dream. Number two, he obviously was referring to his time in San Diego, because if you go back to that time where they fired Andy Green, who hired him, and then they put Jace Tingler in charge, who had no idea what he was doing, and it was kind of open season, plus coaches were angling, and there was a lot of backbiting. The San Diego baseball culture, even now, is at best shaky. There's always storms in there. But listen, if I thought for a minute he was specifically referring to the Cardinals, now, those of you who listen to me, you think I'd really avoid talking about that? Because I'm skeptical that everything's as well as it seems, and I also know that Ali Marmol seems to want to change coaches a lot, or they want to get away from him. And this does not apply to Skip, though. He wanted to get out of San Diego, and basically it was a lateral move to come to St. Louis. It was. Because he's like, man, this place is a zoo. No, thank you. And, I think last year there might have been, there was controversy with Albert because, some naive people in the media and then the fans caught on, were making him the scapegoat for everything. And who knows? I mean, maybe Skip was not an Albert fan, but from what I understand, it's not like Albert tried to bully people or backstab people. If anything, it was the opposite. But I really don't think there was any kind of backbiting on that staff in 2022. So Albert Pujols would never put up with it, among other things. No, I mean, Skip, the San Diego thing was an absolute mess, and that's what he's referring to. And, he came here and it made him, he became a more viable and attractive managerial candidate. And he got a job, and he's doing a hell of a job. Do I wish he was managing the Cardinals? Yeah, I do. But a lot of that is sentimental because, I just have so much admiration for him for so many years. And he's paid his due. He's one of the smartest baseball players I ever covered. He had great perspective on everything. Every player loved him. a guy that was not an all-star, a guy that was never going to, be in the Cardinals Hall of Fame. It didn't matter. He was intelligent. He was resourceful. He had great advice. He helped teammates out when they were struggling. Great leadership quality. So yeah, you bet your rear end. I would take him as the Cardinals manager. I just would. I mean, and that's not even me, blasting Ali Marmol. It's like, if you just honestly give me a choice, well, I already told you who I'd take, right?
Yeah, and I know La Russa was always a fan.
Oh, my
as a player, right? And that's always that carries a lot of weight when you have a guy like Tony and the way he thinks of the players around him.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So I wanted to throw that out there. Don't get excited. He ain't ripping the Cardinals. He wouldn't do that. He liked Ollie. They got along great.
That San Diego thing was a mess there that year.
That's what I mean. People cannot remember anything that didn't happen like 12 minutes ago.
It was. They were here late in the year that year when they had the blow up between Tatis and Machado in that dugout.
That was in 21. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I could see where he's coming from. There was a lot of issues there.
Oh, it was just they were trying to. Tingler was so overwhelmed that she never should have got the managerial job. And once he was vulnerable, and A.J. Preller, obviously can't keep his mouth shut. The guy runs their baseball operation. He's hyper, and he's just always running his mouth. Once everybody down there, including some coaches, got a whiff the fact that, oh, man, hey, the boss hates this manager. This guy's a joke. Yeah, it's like open season,
Yep.
That's exactly what happened. Speaking of Ollie, we're talking about, and I praised him with happy talk before Wednesday's game because I assumed that the Cardinals would come out and be very, very intense and determined. Hey, man, we got a chance. It's been a good road trip. Let's make it a great road trip. Let's win our 5th in a row. Let's go 5-1 before we head to London. And I can't say a bad thing about Miles Michaelis. He gave him a hell of a chance to win. It was a wasted quality start. 7 innings, 2 runs. Take it every time. In today's game, the hitters just didn't show up. It was a day off. It was let's take our swings and let's shower up and get out of here. Get on the flight. And it just was as uncompetitive a set of at bats as I've seen this year by a Cardinals team. 7th shutout, by the way. So Ollie was asked yesterday about. The road trip, and I do consider this road trip separate from London. That's a special event. We're talking about the 6-game road trip to the Mets and to the Nationals. And he said he was sort of putting it in perspective. They had a good road trip. It could have been great. It could have been 5-1. Very happy, obviously, to settle for 4-2, which tells you a lot about what their state of mind is. Oh, we had a good road trip. That's not the point. You gotta maximize opportunities to win. You can't let any of them slip. You gotta jump on it when it's there. You gotta start sweeping teams. If you're gonna make up all this ground, you can't be content to just go 2-1. Now, if you go 2-1, 7-8 series in a row, that's fine. But when you've been so bad and all of a sudden you're having a really terrific road trip, you lose the first game. But then you win you win 4 in a row, and you're hitting, and everything looks better, and you got a chance to punch out the Nationals for 3rd in a row, third game there, a 3-game sweep, 5th overall in a row, and the competitive fire wasn't there. It was for Miles Michaelis. It wasn't there. I told you, Trevor Williams, who's a mediocre journeyman, their starting pitcher. His 6 innings of shutout ball, he only averaged 12.5 pitches, 12.5 pitches per inning. I mean, you can't make it any easier for a pitcher. So I want y'all to remember that the next time you hear about, hey, these guys battle their tails. No, they don't. Sometimes. I didn't realize that was optional, though, right?
Yeah.
So Ollie wanted to give his perspective of like, well, here, where they were, and, now they won 4 out of 6 and blah, 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 blah. I'm not sitting here going, man, I wish I could hit the restart button because I feel like our guys are actually in a really good spot. It may be different for people outside of this clubhouse, but to that group in there, success looks exactly the same. It starts by winning the division and then playing deep in October and taking our shot at the World Series. We've been punched quite a bit, and where do you go from here? You say, the hell with it, let's just roll. That's where we are. No. Where you are is 13 games under 500, 9 games out of first place in a bad division, 26th best record in baseball, and the 13th best record in the National League. You have a defense that's ranked last in defensive efficiency. You have a base running operation where you are statistically at the bottom or near the bottom in terms of bases advanced on batted balls. You have a bullpen that blows up all the time. Your rotation's unreliable. That's where you are. I like where we are.
Uh-huh. Who's responsible?
You like where they are. You like where they are, and maybe when he says stuff like that, it just reinforces in the minds of the players, like, well, first of all, Ollie's got our back. Second of all, well, okay, we didn't sweep. That's okay. None of that is okay. He likes where they are. And they're lollygagging around with the franchise poorest record through 75 games since 1990, and it's their second worst record through 75 games since 1913. I like where we are. You know, and it's cute for him to talk about winning the division and playing deep into October when your team has spent, here you go, another number, but it's a good one, and it's easy to understand. Cardinals have spent 52 days in last place this season and 2 days in first. They haven't been above 500 since the third game of the season. But the manager likes where they are. So if you ever think I'm just a big, obnoxious loudmouth and I'm, trying to be negative or whatever, and when I talk about the sad thing for me is someone who's been writing and talking about this team for a long, long time. What saddens me is that the standards have fallen so low. So just remember this, what I've just been talking about for a few minutes. Whenever you hear me say, man, the standards are so low that it's unrecognizable just about. Just remember that. Because I'm sitting here, and this morning I'm reading, it was either in MLB.com, wherever it was, the manager basically thumping his chest, metaphorically speaking, because they won 2 out of 3 against a Nationals team that's actually worse than they are. And instead of going to that plane to fly to transatlantic over to UK, 5-1, 5-game winning streak, they settled for 4-2, and that's okay. Everything's fine. And maybe the president of baseball operations, maybe with him saying, well, we've got 2/3 of the season left. Maybe they think they got 2/3 of the season left because the boss says it. When they actually are about 50, they're just on the verge of being 50% through their schedule. So you got to qualify for the playoffs before you start talking about a deep postseason run and all this stuff. You got to actually win the division, okay? It's not like, hey, Chestnut, hey, we're the Cardinals, damn it. We're great. Oh, we're having a few tough times, but hey, we're the Cardinals. Y'all get out of the way. It's just the arrogance is unbelievable, but it, of course, is believable. And then, by the way, the stuff about this deep postseason run, when you're 13 games under 500, your franchise has lost 14 of its last 19 postseason games. 14 out of the last 19. They've only won 5 of their last 19 postseason games and only 1 of their last 10 postseason games. one of those losses was because the manager sat there like he was a spectator ordering popcorn, munching on popcorn, while his still injured closer imploded to give away game one of that Philly series. If they win that game, my belief is they would have won the series. I really firmly believe that. But when your manager gives away a game through his own neglect, and that made them 1-9 in their last 10 postseason games. Now, he was only the manager for one of them, but still, that was a huge blow-up, and it tells us, okay, here's another example of why the Cardinals have not been winning at all, virtually, in the postseason. Because a manager's over there looking at an iPad or something.
That was a rough one to watch. You're right about that. I'm with you on that thought process, though.
So, between 2011 and 2013, the Cardinals won 27 postseason games, two pennants and a World Series. And so he's talking about, our goals are still the same. We're going to win a division. We're going to the playoffs. We're going to go to a deep October run, and we're going to go for the World Series. So apparently, Ali Marmol believes he's managing a Cardinals team from a recent and more successful era instead of the team he's managing now. Is he confused about the identity of the 2023 Cardinals compared to La Russa's team in 2011 and how good they were in 12 and 13 as a carryover? Is he confused about which team he's really managing? Oh, we're going to get on a run. Why don't you get to 500 first?
Much needed. Texter says this about your comment. If you like where the Cardinals are, then you're a Reds fan.
That's right. I can't believe these quotes. I'm not sitting here, man, just going, man, I wish we could hit the restart button. Well, I'm sure all your fans would like to hit the damn restart button on the season. I feel like our guys are actually in a really good spot. It may be different for other people outside this clubhouse, but that group in there, success looks exactly the same. Starts by winning the division, playing deep in October, taking our shot at the World Series. Been punched a lot. Where do you go from here? You say the hell with it. Let's just roll. That's where we are. And he clearly likes where they are. And he's referring to their attitude or whatever.
Right.
Where was that yesterday?
That was terrible. I forget.
He's saying this after that stink bomb yesterday. All right. I'll quit hollering.
All right. You don't have to.
No, man, I get on a roll.
Like you said, you can only work with what they're giving you. And they haven't given you anything to be super excited about.
Well, see, let me tell you the one thing worse than a bad and underachieving team, right?
Yep.
The only thing worse is a bad, underachieving team where the only honest commentary has come from Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. The only thing worse than a bad and underachieving team is hearing the president of baseball operations and the manager trying to, in effect, convince us that they're not a bad and underachieving team because they like where they are.